good afternoon. On behalf of the Student Council and the Peer Leadership Council, I would like to welcome you to the 2021 Elgin Park Virtual Career Webinar, Day 2. Today, I'm speaking on the shared, traditional, and unceded territory of the Katsi, Semiahmoo, and other Coast Salish peoples. To begin, my name is Ruth, and I'll be your coordinator for this session. We also have our wonderful PLC and Stuco volunteers here as chat moderators and note takers. Without further ado, I'll be passing the mic to our student interviewer, Paula, today, who will be introducing our honored guest today.
Thanks, Ruth. So, hi everyone, I'm Paula and I will be your interviewer for today's session. Now everyone, I'd like to present our speaker for today, Mr. James Bogart. So,
Hello,
as
everybody.
a graduate of Elgin, James currently studies business of fashion at Polimoda in Florence, Italy. He developed a passion for streetwear brands, but specializes in collecting Supreme, a brand he feels drawn to. In the 6 years that he has been collecting Supreme, James has become the first person ever to collect all 253 Supreme box logo tees ever released for retails, and his feat has been featured previously on news networks such as CNN and CNBC. This complete collection is considered to be impossible to ever be replicated in a single private collection ever again. He also currently boasts an impressive 17.9K following on Instagram. So, like I'm sure everyone else is, I'm so thrilled to have Mr. Bogart here today to speak about his journey and career in fashion and business. So please join me in virtually welcoming Mr. James Bogart. So,
Thank you very much.
yeah, let's start off with the first question. So, when did your passion and interest to collect and sell Supreme box logo t-shirts begin?
Yeah, so it actually began in grade 9 while I was at Elgin. And it started off with me wanting to differentiate myself with what I was wearing every day. So I was lucky enough to be introduced to it by a couple of my peers. And ever since then, it's really snowballed into a complete obsession.
Wow. Yeah, I can tell that you're really into fashion. So at the time, were you expecting it to blow up and succeed to the enormous extent that it has?
No, I don't think anybody would have been able to predict where it's led me to today. Really, I was just passionate about it, and I was interested in acquiring, getting my hands on as much as I possibly could, pretty much by any means necessary. So yeah, no, I had no idea it would come to this conclusion.
So when you first started collecting and selling, did you have this goal in mind already, or was this something that just sort of happened as it went along?
Yeah, no, I had no idea I'd end up first in Italy or be either studying fashion or something within the creative realm. It actually came to me when I was in my gap year, right after graduating. I wanted to put myself in the most uncomfortable position possible. So I took a job with new peers and I tried to gain as much exposure as I could in the space. So as soon as I started engaging with more people outside of the immediate community, then it sort of opened up my eyes to the possibilities abroad.
Oh, wow. So how is it living and going to school in Italy? Do you have any
Yeah,
advice for students who might want to like study abroad?
yeah, I'd say it's first off, it's an amazing experience. It's a once in a lifetime experience. I think that there's a lot of value in getting far outside of your comfort zone and gaining as much exposure as humanly possible. I think from a growth perspective, there's nothing better, especially when you're so young, than to explore as much as you humanly possibly can.
How did you overcome people's opinions who doubted your ability to succeed?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think there were two sort of considerations within that. I think those who were doubting me, I think the people who I respected and whose opinions I valued, I think I took them into consideration, um, but I never necessarily took them to heart, and I never took them personally. And then those who I believed to not have known any better, I just let it brush right over me, and I just kept pushing forward.
Yeah, that's a good mentality to have to deal with those kinds of issues. So, do you have any favorite T-shirts in your collection?
Yeah, too many to count. Too many to count. I definitely do. Probably the first one I ever ended up with has to be my favorite.
And which one is that?
It's a special artist edition with Damien Hirst. At the time, it was the cheapest one, and it was also one that had just recently come out, so there was nothing vintage about it per se. So getting my hands on it was pretty easy.
That's pretty neat. So, have you had any wow, I can't believe that just happened moments, like where you're like surprised or
Yeah, definitely. I think when the founder and owner of Supreme reached out to me personally to congratulate me on the feat and tell me he didn't think it would be possible to put it together because the archive isn't documented in any way, shape, or form. I think that was a really cool point of recognition.
that sounds amazing that you've gone through all this hard work collecting all the t-shirts. So, what are some next steps for you? Any plans for the future?
Yeah, so I'm in my third of fourth year for my undergraduate program here in Italy. So next year, when I do complete the program, I'll be looking at what are some of the opportunities in Europe. Specifically, I think being here in Europe, there's a big advantage with me having an outlook of what North America wants and needs, and also where Europe is currently at. So I think in that regard, I'll definitely be looking at sort of combining those two worlds and staying out here for as long as possible.
Yeah, so you're planning to work in Europe in the fashion industry?
Yeah, yeah.
Neat. So, what is one tip you give to students who wish to find success, whatever that may be, in their professional careers?
Good question. I think going back to the earlier point, if there's something that you're interested in or you'd like to engage with, I think putting yourself in a position where you can learn as much as possible and get hands-on practical experience. In the end, you can only benefit yourself exponentially through some sort of avenue like that. So in that regard, I'd say get super uncomfortable and get super comfortable being uncomfortable and just look to those who can teach you something and those who you really respect, because I think in that sort of regard you're going to be able to learn quite a bit more.
Yeah, I think it's like important for people to follow their passions in their careers. Have you always had a passion for fashion?
No, actually, I had no idea I had a passion for anything creative at all. In fact, I always considered myself to be someone who wasn't necessarily creative, but I think through that sort of consistent exposure, I was able to discover what my passion was and sort of what my strengths were. And so in that way, I was able to discover quite a large passion for fashion.
Oh, cool. So, from what I know, you have your very own website for your t-shirt collection. Would it be possible for you to share your screen and maybe show us your website?
Absolutely. How do I share? How do I share my
Oh,
screen?
there should be a button at the bottom bar.
Gotcha. Yeah, let me get it up here. I absolutely will. Bottom. So bottom bar. Sorry, everybody. You're gonna have to walk me through this. Share screen. Okay. There we go. Let me know if you're able to see it.
Yep, we can see it.
Yep.
Perfect.
Perfect. So this was my, before my collection eventually changes hands, what I wanted to do is I wanted to put together a full complete digital archive of the collection and sort of the project, and then also some of the more not descript nuances of the collection, specifically around some of the untold stories around these t-shirts. Quite a few of them are quite a few of them actually predate my existence. So before I was born in 1999. So a lot of the history and the stories associated with those t-shirts from the earlier days, I thought would be really important to sort of share and stand the test of time. So this is the site, and here I've got some of my favorite teas, and then sort of the introduction towards the collection, and then some of my favorites and the stories to go alongside those.
Do you want to share a favorite story about maybe one or two of your collection t-shirts?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's actually a write-up for all of my favorite teas within the collection, which you can see here, these 4 of them. Probably my favorite one would have to be this artist rendition right here out of the 4 on the screen. It was a very limited release, only available in Hong Kong in 2007. So only 150 in each colorway exists. So getting your hands on one of those was extremely difficult, and I have a great deal of respect for the artist that worked on it.
Wow, this is very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really loved seeing all the t-shirts that you had here.
Thank you. Thank you. Should I stop sharing my screen right now?
I think it'd be good to just keep it for now, about now, because like
sure.
this, like the entire design and the website is just a whole, like a project that's really to look forward to. And I think
Absolutely.
there'll be some questions definitely about it.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
and then, and if it's possible, we can go ahead and move on to the Q&A. Yeah, because there'll definitely be a lot of questions.
Yeah,
For
so
sure.
thank you so much, James. We loved hearing all the details about your career, so we can move on to answering some questions the students may have. I'll pass it along
Absolutely.
to Kaylin to relay the questions from the chat.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Paula.
So we'll start our Q&A session right now, and if anyone watching have any questions, just type in the chat and I'll ask them in order. So I imagine that through collecting all these, I don't know, like these t-shirts, and you must have experienced some ups and downs and been through some hard times. So Rachel asks, do you have a mentor? How has your mentor impacted you? Well, if you have a mentor, how has your mentor impacted you? Do you think having a mentor is important in the exploration of a career pathway?
Yeah, so to answer your question, I do think a mentor is very important, but at the same time, not essential. So I do have a mentor. He's much older. He's in his 50s and he's from London. And when I was very young, I connected with him when I was 17 years old to acquire his collection. And he took a really keen interest in what I was doing and sort of what I was working towards at the time. And he had been around the brand since the very beginning, as well as started many successful fashion ventures. So he was able to sort of guide me through how I should and sort of should not navigate the world of streetwear and fashion at large. So having him by my side and as someone I greatly respect was definitely very helpful. But at the same time, if I didn't have him, I definitely still would have learned some of the same lessons, just probably not as efficiently.
So definitely having a mentor would speed up your process and like getting to learn more about your careers and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's a question in chat. I don't really know how to pronounce your name, but they asked, wondering what is the most amount of money you have spent on one clothing item?
To complete my a part of my collection, which was the unreleased part of the collection, I had to spend above 50,000 US dollars for one shirt.
Ow.
Hurt a
That is
lot, but
a
it was
lot.
very essential for the collection, so I had to do it.
I'm sure it's one of your most prized items.
Absolutely.
Timothy asks, how did you manage to cop a bunch of these? Actually, okay, how did you manage to, I guess, buy all of these items with all the competition and bots?
So a lot of them actually are quite a bit older. So when it did come time to purchase them, I had to search for them on the secondary market.
Mm,
All of the newer ones, it was much easier to get a hold of because there's a lot more ready available stock, and there's been an influx in secondary marketplaces. So on that note, it was much easier to source quite a small number of them that had come out after I'd really began collecting.
mhm. Um, and the drama class or Mr. Wees asks, what are other uncomfortable challenges that you have voluntarily taken on? Because I imagine uh, collecting all these things are not easy. Definitely has to go through.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think at certain points, when I had to travel into more uncomfortable territories, into countries that I'd never been to, or places I'd never been to, or meeting people I'd never met, with sort of an unwarranted risk reward, I think a lot of people would say. I think that was really important because I think it allowed me to recognize that there was nothing to be afraid of. I think I
Mhm,
was definitely worried about being taken advantage of more often than not. But I think the fact that I had a certain level of respect for myself, and I also carried myself in a particular manner, it sort of showed me that there's nothing to be afraid of, and if I really want to, I can accomplish it.
Again, another question for Mr. Weasel. Why choose such a challenging, difficult path? What inspired you to?
Actually, what inspired me was a couple of years ago, someone else who lives in Vancouver, he managed to have a sort of parallel feat in completing all of the skateboard decks that Supreme had ever released. And after he concluded that record-breaking sale with the auction house Sotheby's, it came to me and my peers' attention that the only thing that could one up it would be the box logo T-shirts. And I think after so many people told me that you'd be the only one who could ever complete it, but you're never going to be able to do it. Um, I think at that point I thought, okay, I really should commit 100% of my attention to this, and if I do, I'm confident I can do it.
All right, that's good mindset to have for sure.
For sure.
Rachel asks, what is the most interesting part of working in your career?
I'd say the most interesting part in working within fashion is the creative minds that you get to work with.
Mm,
Uh, I think more often than not, my mind has been blown because of particular ideas, and more specifically, the ways these people want to integrate those ideas. So I have a passion for business and fashion. So anytime somebody has a very interesting creative concept, but an even more sort of revolutionary way of integrating it, I'm always sort of keen to work with new people and hear and share some of those ideas. So I think
definitely.
definitely the pairing between a creative asset and then how they integrate it for sure.
hmm Um, Mr. Grave, our business teacher or the business class asks, do you hope to continue to purchase more Supreme shirts in the future to sell your collection in time? Wait, sorry. Do you hope to continue to purchase more Supreme shirts in the future to sell your collection in time for a good profit and try for a new business?
Yeah, actually, right now the collection is on a private sale basis with the Christie's auction house in New York. So come July, the collection will have a new home and a new direction. And following that, I think I'm pretty burnt out at the moment. So I don't know if I'll be buying any more Supreme right after that. But I think definitely down the line, I have the collector's bug. So I think inevitably they'll find me down the path.
Maybe start like an entirely different collection.
Yeah, definitely a
Maybe.
possibility.
Um, Mr. Weiss asks again, what is the value of the entire collection?
So it was valued at 2.5 million US dollars by Christie's, the auction house. And yeah, I think I was pretty astonished to hear that figure when they came back to me and said that's what they were going to list the collection for at.
Eric has a really good question. I imagine because with such high priced items, there's a lot of, I guess, untrustworthy sites or the sellers. So Eric
Yeah.
asks, have you ever been scammed before?
Yes, a lot of
Oh,
times.
oh
A lot of
no.
times. At a certain point, the scamming almost has to become an expense, which is pretty unfortunate. But I have noticed that anybody who is untrustworthy, they have a very short lifespan. So in the grand scheme of things, I've never seen it work out for those people.
That's great. How did you make your website and who's hosting your servers?
So I made my website with my friend from the UK, the one I was mentioning earlier. It turned out to be a lot more work than I expected, and it's currently being hosted by Shopify, which might seem a little strange because Shopify, I'm actually not collecting any payments. So a little strange that it's on Shopify, but it's been a pretty good host so far.
Nice. Mr. Weiss asks again, or I guess drama classes have a lot of questions. Are rare shoes of interest to you? Or
Yep.
just t-shirts? Oh,
Yeah, they're definitely of interest to me, but I think that it's it's quite overpopulated in the sense that I think a lot of people's attention has shifted towards shoes recently. So from that angle, I've always just been interested in the rarest, the most obscure. So I'm sort of at bay with shoes, you could say.
nice. Maybe start an entire shoe collection too.
Also a good idea.
Miss Vaughn asks, hi James, how did you gain startup money or keep getting money to acquire these shirts?
To be honest with you, reselling is very lucrative. So since I was able to start so young, and the fact that the market has exploded in just an incredible way, a lot of the earlier pieces that I was buying and trading and selling, and the connections that I was building when I was so young, when it was a relatively new or inexpensive market, they ended up paying off tremendously down the line because a lot of the people who have this old inventory, they like to deal within their trust circle. So when items had exploded in value and these older sellers weren't necessarily aware of the newfound wealth in the marketplace, I was able to tap a lot of these people and just rinse and repeat that process since I was in so tight with them.
So I guess after spending a great amount of money, then later down the line, it just comes back because of the value of the collection.
Yeah.
We've time for one last question. I don't really know how to pronounce your name, but they ask, where in Italy are you attending school and what did you learn from schools in Italy?
So I'm in Florence in Italy.
Nice.
And I think while being here, I've definitely learned to appreciate the efficiency of Canada. Um, I think Italy is a very laid back country, but they do definitely respect their traditions. So on that side of things, I've learned how to enjoy life, quote unquote, so to speak, and really appreciate the things and the people who surround me on a day-to-day basis. And also the manufacturing and the quality of the goods produced here are second to none. So I think that's probably my main takeaway from Italy.
Mhm. Oh wait, sorry. We actually there's another good questions that
No
we
problem.
asked students to who went to Elgin. Who's your favorite teachers at Elgin, or what's your favorite course when you were attending Elgin?
Okay, I don't know if we have any English teachers here, but I do have to say every single English teacher I had was phenomenal. It's not that the other teachers weren't phenomenal, because they were, but for some reason I always really loved English class, and I never had a less than amazing English teacher. So for sure the English department.
Would you say that English classes helped you with your business side of things? Like, do you use the stuff you learn in English in
Yeah,
today?
Absolutely, every single day. I know how to articulate myself, and I know how to articulate what I'm really trying to get across much easier through those English classes. And more importantly, it's just helped me with creative flow in writing copy for pretty much anything. So yeah, most definitely use it every day.
That's great. The business class has another question. How did the owner of Supreme reach out to you?
He actually sent me an email, which might seem a little bit strange because
Wow.
he's a man who's, I think, been photographed only a handful of times. But he reached out to someone who I know and someone who I've worked with, and asked him for my email, and then sent me an email out of the blue one day.
So you didn't really need to reach out; they just came to you.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it did.
impressive. I think that's it for all of the questions, unless anyone has more. So I'll pass it back to Ruth.
Yeah,
Perfect.
sure. So yeah, as we've anticipated, there were a lot of good questions, and it was a super informative session. And so I would just like to give a huge thank you to James here for taking the time to join us today again. And I'm sure many of us were inspired by your story, especially the fact that like your journey was difficult, yet you pushed through, and like you're kind of like the success story for us, and someone that uh we can look up to and feel reassured that somebody made it out to the other end, so we can too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so thank you so much. So a
Yeah,
few
my pleasure.
reminders. The recording of this session will be shared on the Peer Leadership Council YouTube channel later this week or maybe next week. Make sure you check it out if you want to revisit any snippets during this session. And if you enjoy this event, please check out our Instagram, EPS Stuco, and EPS_PLC_ for more events in the future. And of course, you go follow Mr. Bogart here on Instagram. So lastly, a big thank you to everyone who joined us today, and we hope you learn more about your interest, and to our teachers and volunteers who made this possible. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Oh,
So
I just have to add one more thing.
yeah, go ahead.
The name that I kept saying I didn't know how to pronounce, I just realized that's actually a French 9 class. So thank you so much for your questions.
Yeah.
Just realized that.
Okay, and that's it for this session. You are free to log out now. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye, James.